Good morning and welcome back to the show. As JD just said, we're going to put him in the chair. And he confessed a little bit that he gets a bit nervous about this sort of thing, which is weird. But, you know, you're a broadcasting veteran, JD, but you don't know what I'm going to ask you.
It's true.
I don't know what I'm going to ask you, but I'm interested in the conversation, and really that's what Impact is. It's a conversation between two people. And I shortly after you got back from your mission trip to Jamaica, I said that if we ever had an open date on Impact, I'd be letting you know, and here we are. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's for the listeners that know nothing about the adventure that you went on, give us a bit of the context, the background. Like, how did you get involved, and when did you start planning, and where did you go?
So basically, how it all started is my church, McMurray Gospel Assembly, decided that they wanted to do a youth-focused mission trip, and they were planning on doing it to Jamaica. And it was a few years that they were trying to do this. One youth in particular was pushing our youth pastor, Eric Benner, for a bit of time. His name is Riley. And there's a few years in a row where he was trying to push Eric to make this happen. And it just wasn't, the timing wasn't right and whatever. But finally, in the fall of 2017, so around November or so, I think, is when they started to say that in the spring of 2018, they were going to do this mission trip to Jamaica. Which initially I thought, oh, that would be pretty cool to go on, but I do a lot at the station and this and that, and so I don't think I could make that work. I don't think I'd be able to do that. But then I found out it was over the Easter weekend, which meant most of the first few days were already off anyhow, and so just the way it all worked out, dates-wise, it became a little bit easier for me to be able to do it. But basically, it was a few youth. There were 4 youth in total and 4 adults that went together. So 8 of us went to Yewerton, Jamaica, was our main place we stayed.
And what kind of work were you doing there?
So the main focus of what we were doing while we were there was supporting the local community that we were in. So we were in Yewerton was the name of the community, but there's 12 outer-lying churches that were all supported by this one church in Yewerton. So there's this network of Gospel Lighthouse churches is what they're called. And we were there, the main one, the Yewerton Gospel Lighthouse Church was the main church we were helping out with. Pastor Dean Reed is the name of the pastor there, and Karen, his wife. Fantastic, lovely, beautiful people that I'm so thankful I got the opportunity to get to know a little bit. And then our host family were amazing people as well. We got to stay with this family of, gosh, now I had to think of how many there were. There were 4 kids, the 2 parents, and then the grandma as well. So 7 of them in this house. And they all went down into the grandma's room. The 7 of them.
Wow.
All went into the grandma's room so these North Americaners could have their rooms.
I have to admit, when I hear Jamaica, I think of beaches and wobbly pops and vacation and wealth. Is Jamaica a country that has a lot of poverty?
So what you just mentioned was the Montego Bay of Jamaica. You just mentioned the touristy, wealthy side to it, which is definitely true. There is that side to it. But even within that wealthy part of Jamaica, we still saw the poverty. Yes, there's a very high level of poverty in Jamaica. And I didn't necessarily... See, I grew up, my big brother back in 2002 maybe or something like that went to Nicaragua. So I remember as a young buck hearing stories, and my brother actually had to shave his head when he came home because he was working in a healthcare center that was just rife with lice.
Oh boy.
So he actually had to shave his head when he got back. And I remember him telling me all these stories of being in this mission position, this mission field, and what it was like to go to a third world nation and serve. And honestly, since then, I've wanted to do it. I've always wanted to go to another country. I've wanted to go and experience another culture and help in some way. And I got that opportunity this year rather, to do that. And I think that one of the, I can't remember your initial question here, but I think one of the coolest parts about that was just the opportunity to leave the Western culture for the first time.
Had you traveled before?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I've flown within Canada, so throughout this country, and then driven into the States on a few occasions.
Sure. So what was your first, you land in Jamaica, your first impression of being on the ground in this new country. Describe the either the feelings or what sticks out to you about that first moment in Jamaica.
Oh man, it sticks out. I remember as we were descending on the plane, I was in the aisle seat, so I was trying my hardest to look out the windows on either side, trying to see a little bit of what was out there. And I still remember seeing the first palm trees, and I still remember seeing just the first most beautiful landscape of ocean, just like the ocean everywhere, and thinking, oh my goodness, that looks beautiful. But we land in Montego Bay is where we landed, so that's where we flew into, and we landed and got out of the plane for the first time, and then I remember just feeling overwhelmed. I remember being overwhelmed by the just the different culture, the many people, the heat. It was so warm, and even just going through customs, it's so interesting. I had nothing. I was doing nothing wrong. I wasn't guilty in a single way, and yet going through customs, I was just shaking. I was so worried for no reason in particular, but it was such a weird experience doing that for the first time. I felt like I was doing something wrong because I was just so nervous, but it's just the first time going through customs. And I just looked at my passport last night actually, and I saw the stamp on there, which that was definitely an interesting first time going through customs.
So you were there for how long?
10 days.
So that's a fair stretch.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the benefits is Jamaica, while probably on a different time zone than us, is not like over in Asia when you have the weird time changes. How many hours it probably was ahead of us?
Yeah, by an hour.
By an hour. Not too bad. Okay,
yeah.
so you didn't have to deal with the jet lag situation.
No.
So when you landed, you get settled. Did you get right to work, or was there a little bit of time to acclimatize to the new place?
So basically, the way it ended up working was we flew in on Good Friday. So we left YMM Airport at midnight on the Thursday, and then we arrived in Montego Bay at 12:30 on Good Friday. So we arrived at the start of the Easter holiday. And we got there and decided to, obviously we were waiting for our team to get together, and then we got our luggage, and we went out and met Pastor Dean for the first time, who flagged down his friend Tony. And Tony was this really cheerful, heartfelt man who had this bus. And that's a huge part of the industry there is the transportation.
Sure.
You're just driving, and there will be a random person just standing on the side of the road just waiting for a bus or a cab. It was very interesting. And that's in really remote areas, too. It's like, man, why are they just standing there? Like, you know, is someone going to pick them up, or are they going to be there for hours? But yeah, so we got in at about 12:30, drove down and found a place to eat. I had my first authentic jerk chicken, which was a beautiful experience. A shout out to Maxine at Chez Max, because she got us prepared for this. She was telling us about the different things to try and the different places to go. And I still love Chez Max's jerk chicken, but it was a different experience to be in Jamaica having it for the first time.
Our guest this morning is J.D. Hunter. J.D. went on a mission trip to Jamaica with his colleagues and friends from the MJ Church, McMurray Gospel Assembly. Boy, that's hard to say when you're tired. And we're going to talk more about the impact that it had on him and the impact he probably had on those in that country. You're listening to Impact, a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, YMM Magazine, and of course 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back to the show on a beautiful Tuesday morning. It is summery outside. The clouds that were there early this morning have gone away. We're going to have another beautiful day. And our guest in the studio is J.D. Hunter. J.D. went on a mission trip to Jamaica. Jamaica, man.
Mm-hmm. Jamaica,
man, back in April.
Mm-hmm.
And I promised JD that if I had an opening in the show that we'd have him in to talk about his experience. And so here we are today. And I'm really interested in the actual work. And for the people listening, what did you actually do to help people when you were there?
Because I think I went off and been to the trail. You asked me how quickly we got into the work as well.
Yeah.
And we got there on the Good Friday, and we went and had some food there. We got to the mission house that we were staying in Ewerton, and it was about a 3-hour, if I'm not mistaken, drive from Montego Bay to Ewerton. So we got to have a few hours to just sit on the bus and just enjoy the scenery, which was really nice.
You still haven't answered my question.
No, I'm moving there. I had to set the scene, Russell. It was so beautiful. But we got there, we relaxed for the rest of the evening, kind of got to know the family, and then the Saturday, I'm getting there. So we had our night with the host family the Friday night to kind of get to know them, and we got to do some work with them as well, is where I was going with that. But right on the Saturday, me and a couple of the youth and a couple adults as well went to their church to go help out at the church to get ready, as they were having a week-long conference. They do a week-long conference every year. They call it the National Convention, and it's the 57th year in a row they've done this. And so we went on Saturday. I got to install toilets. I've never done this before. I got to literally put toilets together and get them all installed and ready to go, which was a really unique thing I have never done before.
You mean porta potties?
No, toilets. Actual toilets.
Wow.
They had a new space in their church that they were developing into a bathroom, and they had these little curtains that went in front afterwards, which was interesting. It was kind of cool to see that. But no, the actual toilets. We got there was a little gel pad thing that goes in the bottom that actually sticks it to the floor.
Yeah.
We put the tank on. We got all the stuff running through the tank and into the wall. So we actually installed these toilets in the church.
Very cool.
And while us guys were doing that, the girls were in the kitchen with the ladies making the spices for the food. So they were learning how to make, I can't remember exactly what the spice was, but basically the spices they were using for the chicken that they were going to cook throughout the week.
For the conference.
Yes, that's right. But some like actual spices. Like they were taking like real vegetables and this and that, pureeing them together. Like it was legit.
But in our previous conversations off the air, you talked about the fact that you were delivering, if I recall, food hampers.
That's right.
Was that the bulk or the meat and potatoes of why you were there?
That was a good part of it, yeah.
Okay.
So the convention that we were there for with the church was a part of it. We were there every single night. I did the math. We did 35 hours of church in that week.
Wow.
We did a part-time job of church, if you will, just getting to support those guys. But what we were doing during the day on a few of those days was first we went to, or a group of people went to Kingston. We were there with the pastor, and he only had a few spots in his vehicle, so only a few could go on each trip. And they went to Kingston, and they went to the Jamaican equivalent of a Costco and got, let me see if I can remember it all. There was rice and flour and sugar and something else. I forget the fourth thing. Cornmeal. Cornmeal was the other one. And then they got these tomatoed sardine cans and beans and just like a bunch of random items. And they came back, and we got to, I mean, there were these, huge pound bags that were quite heavy that we got to empty into these smaller bags. We made 150 food hampers in total as a group. Wow. So we had a couple of afternoons where we were all sitting on the patio, and we just had a bit of a system going. One person was working in this station, and we were going around putting the stuff into the hampers. We had a real good system going by the end of it, actually. And we were able to build 150 food hampers.
And then you delivered them to people that had no idea they were coming.
No idea. And that was the coolest thing ever.
So describe the one gifting that stands out the most in your memory, and what happened, and what did it feel like?
There were so many people. Oh, man. It can make me cry. There were so many people who had absolutely nothing. And it felt incredible, and it was amazing to get to go and just give them something. And there was a few ladies in particular that I just absolutely loved. I had such wonderful conversations with these older ladies. They were just so filled with joy.
Do they speak English? Of course they speak English. Yeah. It's Jamaica, man.
It's Jamaica. And they speak, and I can't remember the name of it. They actually speak a language as well, which is like 6 languages in one.
Yeah.
It's like a Spanish and English, and it's kind of a huge combination. So sometimes they'll just go into that, and then you're trying to understand what they're saying, and that's why you can't understand them, because they're not actually speaking fully in English. But when you're speaking English to them, most of them are quite good with it. A little hard sometimes with the accent, but in general, it was pretty easy to have a conversation.
Did you get a sense, you said they had nothing, but did you get a sense in your brief time there of how they sustain themselves day to day?
You know what, Russell? The conversations I had with most of these people was they said that their faith and prayer was the only thing sustaining them. They said they prayed for their day-to-day needs, and they got their day-to-day needs supplied.
Wow.
And they said that's the only thing they have. And I'm talking about people who are in literally these buildings that I can't even imagine somewhere that you live. No roof, walls broken, like not a full structure by any means. Grass just kind of in it. Like I can't imagine that. And one lady stood out in particular, and I said the word Joy. Her name is Joy, and she was a blind woman living by herself in this one house in Spanish Town. Was what the community was called that we were in at this point. And I remember opening the door, and she actually asked her assistants opening the door because she couldn't see. So we got the door open, and we're having this wonderful conversation with her. And she was so filled with joy, even though she lived in very, very, very humble surroundings by herself, could barely provide for herself, but just had the biggest smile on her face and was just so overjoyed to have a conversation with people.
Love it.
It was amazing. And then getting to give her the hampers, we actually gave her a couple of hampers. Just she was on her own, and we got to give her a couple. And she was so thankful. She just started crying and was just overwhelmed with joy.
Our guest today is JD Hunter. JD went on a mission trip, his first big trip anywhere in the world, just a short time ago. And we're going to take another break and come back, and I'm going to ask JD a couple of really hard questions. There, I'll make him sweat a little bit. You're listening to Impact here on 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back to Impact here on Tuesday morning. My guest is JD Hunter, who's normally on the other side of the microphone. But today we're talking to him about his mission trip that he went on with friends and colleagues from McMurray Gospel Assembly Church to Jamaica. JD, you've been overt in your struggles with your mental health. You've overt, I don't know if that's the right word, open, you've talked about it. I'm really interested, did this experience shape and or influence some of those struggles you've had in your life?
It's really interesting you ask that, because when I went there, I was going through a particularly down season, I would say. I was feeling really depressed for a few weeks before. And so going, there were several moments where I considered just not going because I just didn't feel like it. And also I was just stressing with the station, but we got a great team, so it was fine in the end. But I was like, man, what if I forget something? So I went through all these things in my head, and that caused me to worry about it a little bit too. So there were definitely a few reasons for it probably, but I went there feeling quite depressed, and had a few moments while I was there where I just needed to be by myself to just try and process everything. And so it didn't really go away while I was there either, which was a little bit tough. It was kind of hard to be there and not be in normal surroundings feeling the way I was feeling. So that was a particularly tough part of it, actually. It's interesting you asked me that, because even coming back, it took a little while. I'm starting to feel like I'm coming out of that swing now, but I mean, that's a month later, even after the trip. So it was definitely a bit of a season when I went there. So that was definitely a struggle for that.
You probably were influenced by the long winter and the short days and all those seasonal things that we have to deal with in the Northern Hemisphere. What did you learn? Many
things. How to work together as a team was a big one. I had to give a quick shout out to my team members. We had Eric, we had Mirene, her and her daughter Isimbi went. We had Olivia, Riley, and my friend Dan and Toyin. So there are 8 of us in total. And it was really interesting being different people with different upbringings, different lifestyles, all coming together to try and become this team together and work together. And it was a particularly interesting thing to do that. And I learned a lot about working together with people that you know, like we know each other from church and from youth group and young adults, so we know each other, but to live with people is different than just knowing people. So I really learned some good experiences of getting along with and working together with a team in an environment like that. Man, there were so many things. Even just showering and turning the water off to lather up is something that I still do. I found that was such a cool way to conserve water. That's what they did to conserve water. They were, conservative with absolutely everything. They used absolutely anything. A true story. I was a little bit, I don't want to say mortified, but I feel like, for lack of a better term, we were having soup one day. And I was enjoying my chicken noodle soup, and then took a scoop up and found a foot and thought, ah! And I took a brief moment and just stared at it and thought to myself, what is that? And then I kind of realized that is the chicken's foot. So I felt my stomach slowly turn a little bit. In an environment like that, they use everything. They don't waste anything. They use and conserve absolutely everything, which I really appreciate that, because I grew up in a frugal home where we were taught lessons about being just conscious of everything around us and not wasting things. So I really felt that was a good experience. It was a little bit of an interesting one at some points in time. That was a good story of that, but it was a good experience overall.
What are you left with about the people of Jamaica that you served and got to know a little bit? What resonates with you?
I was really surprised by how well they knew North American pop culture. Just music and celebrities and whatnot, just having conversations. I was really surprised by how much they knew. Mind you, they're right below us, I suppose, so they're not that far away from us. They're kind of in the same end of the earth, so I guess that makes some sense. But as far as the people are concerned, I was so blown away by the people of Jamaica. And in particular, the host family just showed so much to us, and the kids and the people in the village. You know, a lot of them, one thing in particular was people constantly trying to sell you something, because that was how they provided. We went to Montego Bay, and I was asked every 30 seconds, if not shorter than that, if I would like to purchase a certain product or a certain service. And I was really, really blown away by that. It was almost a culture shock just in that moment of every few seconds someone else was trying. And after a while, I was thinking to myself, can I just walk? But then I thought, you know what? I'm in these people's environment, and this is how they support themselves. Yeah. I come here to the bridge. This is what I do. But that's how they literally put food on their table.
Absolutely.
So I had to check myself at a couple points.
Last question. Will you do it again?
Oh my goodness, yes. Literally have been itching since I got back. It was an unbelievable experience. I can't even put into words sometimes when I'm talking to people about just how much I learned, how much I experienced. And one thing in particular that that was a real takeaway for me is just the sense of community and the sense that people are all that they need. And the relationship with God was all that they needed. This ability to just go off of that and have nothing else. They had conversations for hours on end. Everything was built around relationship. The meal times, going to church, going to places. It was all built around community. And coming back to North America, as a person who loves conversations, as a person who loves talking to people, that really fueled me. And I've had a couple moments in being back that have been really tough, because we are so busy in North America and we don't always have time to talk.
Yeah. We don't say hi to each other sometimes when we pass on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
And every single person says hello to every single person there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
JD, thank you so much. We're out of time. And I'm so glad that you were able to share a piece of your adventure and the work and the impact it had on you, and of course the impact it had on those people that you serve. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
JD Hunter is one of the announcers and personalities here on 91.1 The Bridge, but in his personal life, he did a mission trip to Jamaica in April and had certainly a life-changing experience. So thank you to him. You're listening to Impact. It is a team effort. There's a lot of people that make this possible, including United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray. Matt is back with us, thank goodness, because he makes us look so good. We also get great support from YMM Magazine, who allow us to share some of these stories in their publication. And of course, none of this would be possible without our friends here at 91.1 The Bridge.